Hey friends, it's week 177 of quarantine. Like you, I am in my house. I'm going to try and film this. You may hear kid noises in the background because I got 4 of them. But today we're going to do something a little different. Instead of reading this week's Gospel Project text from the scriptures, we're going to read it from the Jesus Storybook Bible, a portion of it. Because today's Bible story is all about the time when Jesus is first calling those 12 disciples to come and follow him. And instead of reading from all 4 of the Gospels, those different instances, I'm going to have actually one of my kids read from the Jesus Storybook Bible how that experience went down from this story's perspective.
One day, Jesus was walking by the Sea of Galilee when he saw some brothers and friends mending their nets. They were poor fishermen. Jesus called out to them, "Let's go." Peter, Andrew, James, and John looked up at this man on the shore. They couldn't explain it. Their boats needed to be put away. Their nets needed mending. Fish were still wriggling on the shore. But something about the stranger made them just drop their nets and their fish, leave their boats and everything, and followed him. This God-man was like no one they had ever met. When they looked at Jesus, their hearts filled up with a wonderful, forever sort of happiness, and inside it was as if they were running free in an open field. Jesus asked 12 men to be his helpers: Peter, Andrew, James, John, Matthew, Philip, Bartholomew, Thomas, another James, Simon, Thaddeus, and Judas. Meeting Jesus would change them all forever.
For all of those first disciples especially, meeting Jesus and choosing to follow him was the most transformative moment of their lives up to that point. And for us, just like for them, that call of Jesus to come and be a disciple, to follow him, is really a twofold call. It was a twofold call for those disciples, and it's a twofold call for us. The first part of that call is simply that call into relationship. That's that follow me part of that call. And when the disciples would have heard that it was an invitation to come eat with me, come walk with me, come live with me, come learn from me. A disciple in that day was this whole kind of institution of like attaching yourself to a teacher and literally walking behind them and living with them and doing life with them in order to learn from them. And so Jesus was this teacher who was teaching, and that was this role he had with his disciples, was to teach them the scriptures and to correctly interpret them, and then teach them how to follow God and how to be righteous. We use this word in church a lot called discipleship, and that's really what we mean when we talk about discipleship, is this idea of doing life together in hopes of looking more like Jesus. So that was the first call. The second call, after the call to a relationship, was a call to life change. That's in those stories where Jesus says, "I'm going to make you fishers of men." That's a call to life change. Again, the disciples meeting Jesus is going to change all of them forever. When any of us meet and start a relationship with Jesus, it changes us forever. Those disciples were not the same men at the end of Jesus' ministry that they were in the beginning. They weren't the same men 40 days after Jesus' crucifixion as they were in the beginning. You and I, when we start a relationship with Jesus, will not be the same after that relationship has got started, after we do that following him, that doing life with him. One of my favorite stories, and one of the ways this life change occurs is this life change makes the disciple want to or compels them to want to invite other people into that relationship. And so the most famous story of that for me is the disciple Andrew, who meets Jesus, and the first thing he goes and does, what the Bible tells us, the first thing he goes and does is he goes and he finds his brother Peter and brings him to meet Jesus, to invite Peter into a relationship with Jesus. We know way more about Peter than we do Andrew, but like Andrew, he was so changed by meeting and starting a relationship with Jesus. He went and got somebody else and brought him with him. So as disciples, we should do what our teacher did. We should be inviting others who don't know Jesus into relationship, both with us as people who do know Jesus and with the Lord. We should be doing that work of evangelism and inviting people to come and know Jesus. And we should also be inviting them into the life change that's going to follow that. So the big idea this week for kids was going to be just that Jesus called his disciples to follow him. That was what Jesus did in this story of calling his disciples, just like, hey, come follow me. Hey, I'm going to change you. For the students, the big idea was going to be that the invitation to become a disciple is also an invitation to invite others to be a disciple. The term I've used often is disciple making disciples. The idea that if I'm a disciple of Jesus, one of the ways my life should be changed is I go like Andrew and I find another person to come and meet Jesus and start a relationship and be a disciple. And that's really how discipleship works. And then as far as discussion questions this week, we're going to keep it pretty simple. One is just in light of our kind of current situation where inviting people to church isn't really an option physically to church, what are some ways that this week you can practice inviting others into a relationship with you with the intention of them meeting Jesus through that? Or what ways can you very specifically this week invite others to meet Jesus, to start a relationship with Jesus? Where are the places where you and your family could share the gospel this week? And then the other question is, I'm a big believer in making plans and intentionality. And this season isn't going to last forever. Quarantine is going to end. Our church services are going to resume in person at some point. So what plans can you be making right now to be ready to invite people back to church and invite people into that relationship with Jesus when all this is said and done? One of my most favorite stories is of a pastor up in Dallas who didn't know the Lord, and a guy on his football team met him in the locker room one day and said, hey, I need to tell you about Jesus. When do you want to do that? The whole idea was just like, I'm going to be intentional. I'm going to let you kind of pick the time, but we're doing this because I'm planning to do this. How can you and your family this week be making plans to share the gospel and to invite people into discipleship with Jesus as this season ends? I hope you're having a great week. I hope you're enjoying the sunshine and the family time and a new month. And I hope these videos are encouraging to you and helpful as you're discipling your family. As always, go to our website to find more resources. And until I see you again, God bless.